there's many ways to look at marriage. You could look at marriage from a historical point of view. You can look at marriage from a religious point of view. You can look at marriage from a spiritual point of view, an economic point of view. There's many ways to look at marriage. My views on this is that ultimately, when we talk about the institution of marriage, that goes back to religion. That goes back to religion. And the institution of marriage was set up based on male patriarchy, because the system of religion was based on male patriarchy. Let me do a little bit of history on religion for you. If you really research the history of religion, you'll find out that really the history of religion goes back to the men going into Africa, men going into Africa, going back into Africa, and going into matriarchal communities and taking over these matriarchal communities and converting them to religion, which was based on patriarchy. Now, there were black men that partook in this, and there were European men that partook in this. So this is not a black or white thing, and this is not a colored thing. This is basically the history of religion. Even when you study the history of Christianity, you'll find that in the history of Christianity, those witches that didn't want to convert to Christianity, these were women. Like, women were basically considered witches, because women, when they were in rulership, which was before religion, women were in rulership before religion, and these women were considered witches. This is where you get the term Wicca from. And these women were like Wiccas or witches, and basically they used earth magic. Their religion, if you want to call it that, was really like occult science. They dealt with Wicca, which was an occult science, and they dealt with like earth magic. And basically, they didn't believe in like structure as far as like even our economic structure, and all of that is based on religion, because they didn't believe in going out to do anything. Like, everything was based on living in an environment and living in a community and giving offerings from the earth to various different gods or deities, which were basically elemental deities like the air, the fire, the water, and the earth. So they gave offerings of air, fire, water, and earth to these elemental deities or whatever. This was their system of worship. So they had a very, instead of like having a system of where a bunch of people would buy up a whole bunch of food and control the land and then take this food and package it and ship it out, they basically just had gardens. These women had gardens or whatever. So it was no need for, I'm talking about when matriarchy was like dominant, like this is how the world was ran or whatever. There was no need for like international trade and importing and exporting and all that. I mean, you might have like tribes that traded amongst each other for things that they produced. I'm not saying that. Like, I'm not saying that it was just absolutely no trade. What I'm saying is that our world now is based on all the food is controlled by basically a handful of people, and pretty much you can't really, it's against the law to grow things pretty much all over this planet. So people really don't grow things anymore. Even in Africa, even in South America and all these places, they're importing their food in. They're importing their food in. Even here in America, of course, most people are importing their food in. And this is based all on religion. So, and this goes back to marriage. So I'm not getting off point. I'm going to show you why. So what happened was is that religion was set up based on patriarchy. The first thing they had to do was overthrow the matriarchal system of economics and the matriarchal system of government. And to do that, they had to basically condemn the woman and basically enslave the woman. Enslave the woman. And this is where you get the term marriage from, because the term marriage comes from the term marry. To marry somebody, right? But just think about it. Mary and Joseph, Mary and Jesus, Mary. See, Mary is dealing with a woman. To female. And so to marry someone is dealing with the control of a female. When you say I'm going to get married, typically, now I know we have these different marriages in modern society, and I'm not talking about that. I'll do a part 2 to talk about that. I'm talking about historically. Typically, when you say I'm going to marry someone, this basically, the idea of it historically was that the woman is going to stay at home and be a housewife and basically be under the control of a husband. Now let's go and break down the term husband. The term husband means to govern, like a husbandman. He was a governor. It literally means to govern, or a master. A husband was like a master or a governor over either some land. The original term for husband deals with basically one who governed the land. This was your original husband. But then the land was the woman, or the earth. And this is why we call her Mother Earth, because even the 5%ers, they call the woman the earth, like the old earth, my old earth. They call her the earth because the man or the husband governed and managed the earth. He tilled the earth. And basically this earth was his based on him being the husband. So in essence, the woman became the property of the male in marriage. I want you to think over that. The woman became the property of the male in marriage. And I'm not saying this to cause any type of rift between the sexes and all. I'm just telling you the true system of marriage and how it went down. So basically it originally started based on the control of the woman. And basically the woman was basically called a wife. Now, if you look up the term wife, did you know that the term wife means to veil, like to put a veil over someone, or to twist? That's what the original term wife means, to twist or to put a veil, because they twisted and put a veil over the woman and made her into basically a wife. This was the males that did this. These were, like I said, black males and European males, going back to the system of religion. See, this is where marriage comes from. Our concept of marriage comes from religion. And this is something that you really have to understand and understand. So this is where you get terms like fornication and adultery and things like that. Now let's get into the political aspect of it. So now you got basically the man, he controls his wife through him being a husband, right? But then guess what? Now this man has to go and legally marry this woman based on a contract. That's right, based on a contract, meaning that he has to pay money, and this still goes on today. You got to go and pay money to go marry somebody because you love this person or whatever, y'all love each other or whatever. You have to go and pay money to marry them. So see how the system of marriage is based on, it's political and it's economic, and it's based on a contract. And right now the system of marriage is controlled by the state. In the United States of America, the system of marriage is controlled by a state because you have to get a marriage certificate. Basically, you have to go get permission from the government to basically have sex. That's how it was. You had to have permission from the government to have sex. And if you didn't, it was called fornication, an adultery. And really, if you want to go deep back into the term fornication, the original fornicators were really actually the prostitutes. A fornicator was a prostitute, or a group of women that would come and sex up the Romans. These were your original prostitutes, you see. So then a woman, basically, that wasn't married was a fornicator or a prostitute. You see how they twisted the mind of the woman? Twist, wife, to twist. Remember I said that? See how they built the woman and isolated her and put her into a house? And I'm not saying she shouldn't be in the house and be a housewife. I think that's sexy, you know what I'm saying? A woman that like cooks and cleans. I'm not saying that that's feminine, and I understand that. I mean, a man should know how to cook too, actually, but I think that's beautiful, you know what I'm saying? A woman that knows how to cook and clean. But I'm telling you, politically, this is a political idea we're speaking on now. I mean, this isn't like, don't get like individually emotional about this. This is a political concept of what they did in history with marriage and how the history of marriage is based on control. This is what I'm trying to get you to see. And it's based on economic and government control by government. And not even by government, but by a group of men that you have to go get a license from to basically get married. Now, let me break something else down to you. A lot of people don't know this. Now, I know we had marriage in ancient cultures. Now I know you're going to say, well, Ram Hotep, I mean, you're saying that marriage is this and marriage is that, but marriage goes back before Christianity and all that. I mean, they had marriages in the Ethiopian, the Yoruba culture, and the ancient Egyptians. I mean, they had marriages, and they didn't use that term marriage, and this is where this is why you don't know language. So it's like you don't even know which terms they were using, because they had more of like consorts, and we translate that to say wives and husbands, and they were married and stuff like that. But these are all new terms, wives and husbands, that go back no more than the 1500s and stuff. These terms came out: fornication, adultery, wives, husbands, marriage, married. This is all based on religion. Why do you think she's called married? You know what I'm saying? Virgin Mary. Because the ideal woman to marry was a virgin, because it's all based on the woman. Did you know the term virginity? Technically, a male can't be a virgin, because the term virginity is based on when the woman, when she basically the skin that protects the woman, so that when you penetrate a woman that's a virgin, you have to break through that skin, and that's how you know she's a virgin, because you have to break through that skin. So basically, the woman, when she broke that skin, that's when you consecrated the marriage. This was consecrating the marriage, because really, virgins were supposed to get married. This is where you get the term virgin Mary from. And see, people need to wake up to these things. So, I know I only have 15 minutes, so I'm going to try to wrap this up, and I'll do a part 2 if you guys want me to, but I'm just trying to point out a few things. So marriage is based on the control of the woman. It's an economic, political tactic that was based on controlling the woman, because the reason why is because, remember I told you in the beginning that these women that most of your heyday of society before religion was like, far as your like big time society and your heyday of society, like you know how America and the Western world and Europe is basically like it's like the peak of society right now. Well, at one point, Africa was the peak of society. Africa was the peak of society, and basically they had to go into Africa and pillage Africa, and they had to pillage Africa. They had to control the woman because Africa dealt with a system of matriarchy. Now this doesn't mean that the males were punks. Oh no, the males wasn't punks in Africa, but it wasn't based on the woman was basically the ruler. Based on, there's a reason for that too. I can break that down in another video. It's a deep reason why the woman was the ruler in Africa, a scientific reason. It's not just some talk, you know what I'm saying? There was a reason why she was the ruler in Africa. So when the religious nuts, which were black males too, you know what I'm saying, which were Europeans and different skin colors, these people that wanted to break away from matriarchy, see, they came out. They came out of Africa and then they went back into Africa as religious nuts because the Catholic Church and all these things there were black people like St. Augustine. He was black. He was a part of the Council of Nicaea, St. Augustine. This was a black man, a Moorish man. And then these people went back into Africa and basically enslaved the Africans and had to enslave the woman and put her into a system of marriage and made her look like a prostitute if she had sex outside of it and she didn't have a piece of paper or a contract. This happened over a year's time or whatever, but made her look like a whore basically because she didn't have a piece of paper saying that she was married, which was based on political control because they had to break down the system of matriarchy so that they can introduce religion so that they can take control of the land. And the first part of the land that they had to take control of was the old earth, like the 5%ers say, the woman, the moon, the earth. The moon came from the earth. So the woman, this all goes back to the earth. This is why the woman is called the moon, because the moon came from the earth. So they had to go back and take down the matriarchal gods and put up patriarchal gods. See, the matriarchal gods go back before the patriarchal gods, believe it or not. The matriarchal gods are older than the patriarchal gods. So this is where your system of marriage came from.